This is CBC Vancouver News.
Let the politics resume.
Our focus is to continue to do the work that British Columbians have sent us here to do.
The complete lack of any sense of focus on outcomes.
Full coverage and reaction to BC's throne speech, a blueprint of the province's priorities moving forward. Plus, BC's new housing model gets a boost from the feds.
This is exactly the kind of visionary, progressive housing solution that people need.
Very, very encouraging to see the federal government come forward with today's announcement.
Accolades for the province's plan to build its own affordable homes, but questions remain over how many and how quickly. Also, a big night for the hometown kid. A young Surrey hockey player makes his NHL debut playing for the Vancouver Canucks. Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin in Victoria, where the BC government has laid out its priorities in the annual speech from the throne. The Lieutenant Governor presented the province's blueprint for housing, healthcare, and affordability challenges. Our Bains is at the legislature, where the spring sitting is now underway.
Big day here at the BC Legislature. The throne speech ceremony is steeped in tradition and symbolism as the government outlines its goals. The black rod knocks before the Lieutenant Governor can enter to symbolize the independence of lawmakers from the Crown. For the first time, Lekwungen singers and dancers of the Songhees Nation performed a welcome ahead of the speech as a sign of ongoing reconciliation.
Your government makes a simple commitment to you. It will have your back so you are not facing these new challenges alone. Because leaving people to fend for themselves does not work.
Housing for middle-income earners, cost of living, and healthcare shortfalls are key priorities. A big problem is bad faith evictions for renters.
We have some landlords that say they're using their place for a family member, but end up using it for just bringing somebody else in at higher rents.
It's also a critical year ahead for the official opposition. BC United questioned why there weren't more efforts to help with the overdose crisis and deal with decriminalization, and didn't rule out a coalition with the BC Conservatives ahead of a fall election.
I've always said, look, BC United is the coalition party. We always have been. I've always said we'd be willing to work with anybody, including John Rostad and the BC Conservatives, that want to help us defeat the NDP.
This legislative session is expected to be packed, with the government hoping to pass 20 pieces of legislation. They include more renter protection, a law to protect schools and kids from disruptive protests, and anti-racism legislation. The BC Conservatives took issue with protest legislation.
I just wonder why we're at that point where this government would look at that as being an issue.
Rustad so far doesn't see a path to working with BC United. The BC NDP hoping their vision for the province will help bolster support in a fall election. Bains, CBC News, Victoria.
As you heard, housing was a key part of today's throne speech, paired with a provincial promise to build thousands of affordable homes. As Joel Ballard reports, part of BC's ambitious plan has garnered the support of the Prime Minister.
The province has secured hefty backing for its new BC Builds program, to the tune of $2 billion in federal financing.
Our government thinks this is exactly the kind of visionary, progressive housing solution that people need.
Last week, the province launched BC Builds, which aims to streamline the construction of housing by using publicly owned land to build rental buildings for middle-income earners, funded through low-cost government financing.
This will support, at a minimum, 8,000 to 10,000 new homes over the next few years, with more to come as even more land is secured.
It's on top of the $2 billion in financing provided by BC, and another almost $1 billion to ensure the units are available at below market rates.
This is a model that has been used in Singapore, in Vienna, in far-off places like Seoul, Korea, and in Whistler, British Columbia. We know that it works, and we're taking that model and we're expanding it dramatically.
20 sites have already been identified for construction, including this location in Vancouver's Yaletown. A 9-story co-op will be built here with 112 new homes.
We've said for the longest time that housing co-ops are in some ways the best kept secret in the housing ecosystem.
But he says access is a challenge, plagued by long wait lists.
We're now digging ourselves out of the hole that was created literally by 2 decades of federal inaction in housing.
At the announcement, Vancouver's mayor was especially grateful.
You guys are awesome. We love you guys.
In Vancouver and across the region, he says quick action is vital.
We are finding that more and more of our people, the people that work in the city of Vancouver, are living further and further away.
While the program has garnered strong backing from the feds, one housing expert warns it's not a silver bullet to fix the crisis.
This sort of program helps deliver housing more quickly, but I think it's extremely likely that housing demand will continue to outpace supply, and we'll see rising rents and prices over time.
Through the program, projects are expected to go from conception to beginning construction within 12 to 18 months. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
The nuts and bolts of the province's spending laid out in the throne speech will be revealed Thursday on BC Budget Day. We headed out to ask Vancouverites what they think the province should be prioritizing.
Just be nice to see more affordable childcare options and for it not to be so difficult to find a spot for your kids.
A little bit more on the public transport. I think it could afford to have slightly more frequent bus routes in the cities and maybe even extended train hours.
Healthcare, definitely, because my parents are elderly, so in that to support older people, and housing for elderly people who may not have the financial resources.
I would like to see it being put into affordable housing, because I think the margins for affordable housing are like, I don't know, I just feel like there's such a huge divide between like the rich and the poor, and the middle class is being pushed into like the poorer demographic.
I would be interested in putting it into fundraising for the playground.
Nice. Yeah, I'd like to see it to incentivize new business and innovation and fostering a greater economy right now.
I'm going to go with Lucy's answer. School board, yeah. Lots of, education is really needed right now.
And she's the top of it right now.
I'm helping fundraise for the playground. Yeah, it's really important.
She went dressed up like a wow.
Yeah, that was another fundraising day we had, for sure. I mean, these kids are going to be in grade 3, and like I said, there isn't a place for them to play at the playground right now. Also, with kids with learning differences, we just need more support in education.
We will have live coverage of the BC budget, including reaction and a breakdown of what it means for you and your family. BC Today with Michelle Elliott is live with full coverage from noon to 2 p.m. this Thursday. You can watch on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Well, BC has a new post-secondary education minister. The Premier has chosen Elisa Baird to replace Selena Robinson, who resigned from cabinet over her comments about the Middle East. Baird was previously the Minister of Citizens Services. Robinson is still a member of the NDP caucus, but says she won't be running for re-election in the fall. In Burnaby, the Parkland Refinery hosted an open house tonight. It was the first opportunity for neighbors to talk to the company since January's mysterious incident.
A lot of us have signed up for an app called Alertable, and we didn't hear from it until after 1:30 in the afternoon. The incident started at 7:30 in the morning, so our biggest concern was to be alerted from the refinery earlier so we know what's happened. We had to be told by the firefighters to go inside, stay inside, and we didn't have any idea what was happening.
The community meeting comes nearly a month after a plume of black smoke and a mysterious smell escaped the facility, causing widespread concern. Company representatives say in the name of transparency, the results of Parkland's investigation will be made public once it's complete in the coming weeks. Well, next month, a group of scientists will research the health impacts of air pollutants from a future LNG project near Squamish. It is the first Canadian study on gas flaring, or the burning of excess methane that can happen as natural gas is processed into liquefied natural gas. The research will focus on the wood fiber LNG plant, expected to be complete by 2027. It's one of 6 LNG export projects currently in the works across BC, which some experts say has the potential to harm.
It's harmful for pregnant women. It produces lower birth weight babies. Lower birth weight babies have cognitive difficulties. They have more cardiovascular disease as adults. They have higher mortality.
Meanwhile, Woodfibre LNG says flaring will be harmless and rarely needed. The project was approved by BC's Environmental Assessment Office in 2015, and the province said it met air quality and health requirements. 2 16-year-olds have been charged in a shooting at a Sikh activist's house in Surrey. It happened earlier this month on 154th Street, just off Highway 99. A group advocating for Sikh independence had said the Indian government was involved in the shooting. However, RCMP say they have not established any links to foreign interference. The 2 teens being held in custody are awaiting their next court appearance. To the Okanagan, and RCMP are recommending a charge of criminal negligence causing death in a 2021 crane collapse that killed 5 people in Kelowna.
It's been a long time coming, and it's definitely been challenging. Been waiting for a long time to hear the details behind it all.
The crane was being used in the construction of a residential tower downtown. The arm of that crane collapsed from about 25 stories up and wound up crashing into a neighboring office tower. The BC Prosecution Service will now consider whether to move ahead with the charge based on an RCMP investigation. Well, the City of Vancouver is trying to recover costs from 3 companies involved in rehabilitation work on the Granville Bridge. A lawsuit claims some of the work was shoddy and led to premature corrosion and degradation of the 70-year-old span. Our Benny Brach spoke with the CBC's Chad Pawson about the details of that lawsuit.
Chad, tell me about the issues working on this bridge.
Yeah, Benny, this is interesting because it shows how cities are going about doing like a routine work, right? Like fixing up a bridge. Granville Bridge is like 70 years old. It needs specific maintenance. About 5 years ago, the city went to do some maintenance to extend the life of the bridge by another 40 years. So it like fixed it up. It got 3 companies involved that were supposed to like repair the steel structure, put this coating on it. Now, a couple years later, they realize the coating structure is not working properly. The bridge is corroding. It's wearing out quicker than they thought it should. And so they're unhappy about this, and they're turning to the courts to try and recover costs from these 3 companies, an engineering company, a general contractor, and then a painting company that did this work. And so they're going to try and recover the costs.
So a whole group. Have we reached out to the companies? Have we heard anything?
Yeah, just reach out to the companies now for them to respond. Of course, this is a civil suit, so they have quite a bit of time to respond to something like this.
Yeah.
I think the overall question is the city's alleging, the bridge has these unsafe conditions, but I think the bridge is completely safe. The city has gone and done the repairs necessary to make sure it's safe, but that was increased cost for them. So they're going to try to recover these costs and are turning to the courts to do it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Chad.
You're welcome.
A promising young hockey player from Surrey who took an unlikely route to the big leagues has made his NHL debut. Tonight, 23-year-old left winger Arshdeep Bains played his first game in blue and green in Colorado against the Avalanche.
Arshdeep, he's a skilled and talented player, of course, but he's also been very hardworking and dedicated. Playing with the Abbotsford Canucks, leading scorer there for the AHL affiliate of the Vancouver Canucks, and top 20 in the entire AHL. So he's done really well at that level, and he's worked extremely hard. And I think for young kids to see that, it gives them some confidence as well, knowing that, maybe I've got a chance to do this at some point in my life.
In classic NHL tradition, Bains took to the ice before the game for a solo rookie lap. In total, he had 13 minutes and 21 seconds of ice time. In that, he managed 3 hits, 1 blocked shot, and a tripping penalty. Bains becomes one of only 4 Punjabi players in the NHL. The Canucks, by the way, dropped the game to the Avalanche 3-1. Up next, Canada's cooling inflation, what it means for affordability. Coming up, stay with us. Well, this Black History Month, the tunes of a long-ago Vancouver icon have found new life. The psychedelic soul hits of artist Jason Hoover are once again being celebrated. 50 years ago, he was headlining with Led Zeppelin. Now, as Yvette Bren shows us, his talent is being recognized by new audiences.
I'm Jason Hoover. These are the Epics.
In the late 60s and 70s, Jason Hoover played all the Vancouver soul hotspots. He even played an event with an up-and-coming British band, Led Zeppelin. That band eclipsed his fame by the next year.
Jason is a remarkable talent, but outside of Canada,
hardly anyone has ever heard of him.
His psychedelic sound got played across the country. Now, decades later, there's new life for his music after his song King Size was picked for a CBC radio contest this past Christmas.
Just been riding this road of getting Jason heard.
David Jones spent years working on a documentary about Hoover.
It's pretty exciting that Jason would come here from Edmonton, and within several months, he would go from the dive bars to being one of the top acts in town.
Hoover released a dozen 45s, but Jones says his talent was overlooked. He's not surprised his tunes still resonate.
It's natural that it would find an audience again because it's just so good.
Hoover, who had thyroid cancer, died in November, 1 month before his song got attention on CBC's radio contest. He was 78.
He was never really, given the recognition that he deserved, and it's starting to come now, and it's really a good thing.
Hoover's son, Breck Henderson, spent a lot of time with his dad before his death.
A difficult chore to be a father and a rock star. Nobody should marry a rock star.
Henderson says his dad was excited a documentary was underway.
His music is great. I enjoy it today, and a lot of people do.
Jason Hoover had to fight tooth and nail to get that song on his album. It ended up being the most popular song, and it played all over Canada on the radio.
Families say Hoover would be proud to hear his songs and his life story get fresh play.
Definitely hits that soft spot in the heart.
Yvette Brent, CBC News, Vancouver.
Welcome back. Inflation in Canada is cooling. The overall rate slowed more than expected in January, hitting 2.9%. That's down from 3.4% in December. The CBC's Nisha Patel breaks down more of the numbers.
Lower prices at the pump helped slow inflation last month. Grocery costs are also cooling, with the price of soup and bacon actually falling compared to the same time a year ago. Canadians are also paying less for airfares, clothing, and shoes. Experts say it's evidence that higher interest rates are working, making borrowing more expensive to rein in consumer spending.
A lot of the pent-up demand is gone, and households are hit with the reality that housing prices are very high. The economy is not doing great, and so they are forced to cut back on discretionary spending.
Though there is little relief on the price of shelter, the cost of interest on mortgages remains one of the biggest drivers of inflation, up 27% year over year. Rent spiked nearly 8%.
I'm not just working one job, I'm working 3 jobs just to make ends meet.
Things are so expensive. Like, I wanted to buy strawberries and that seems like a luxury.
I've really just cut back and actually changed my lifestyle to accommodate the change in pricing.
Still, for the first time since last June, overall inflation is back within the Bank of Canada's target range.
Well, they're going to want to see some sustained evidence of price stability being restored. So if this continues to be the trend, what we saw in January here, then the bank can certainly say that they've done a good job.
So while the latest inflation numbers are a step in the right direction, economists expect the central bank to stay cautious and hold its key interest rate steady next month. The first interest rate cut is forecast to come by June. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
It might not sound like much in cities like Vancouver, but the average asking price for rent across Canada has reached nearly $2,200 a month. That's a 10% increase from the same time last year. And in Quebec, a long-standing tool that's helped moderate rent increases could soon disappear. The CBC's Alison Northcott has more on that province's so-called lease transfer.
This is my kitchen.
When Satya Ortiz-Gagné was moving out of his last apartment, he wanted to transfer the lease so a new tenant could pay the same rent.
To be able to refuse an increase in the rent, I think it's the only tool that we have right now to be able to keep it just a little bit low.
But housing advocates say that tool is about to lose its power. A new law that could pass as early as this week gives landlords the right to refuse lease transfers for any reason. Quebec's housing minister says the bill is meant to strengthen protections for renters.
That was my goal, better protect the tenants against eviction so that they're not taken by surprise, that they receive better compensation if they have to leave.
Montreal was long known for its lower housing costs, but rents have been rising. An average two-bedroom jumped nearly 8% last year alone. Tenants' rights groups have been fighting Bill 31, arguing giving landlords more power will lead to discrimination.
It will take away tenants' rights to carry out lease transfers, which has historically been one of the few levers that tenants have to keep rents affordable, to support each other through what's become one of the worst housing crises in Quebec history.
Landlords argue while some parts of the bill will complicate their lives, having more say over who can take over a lease and when is a good step.
Every year I have lease transfer, and there's a disconnect when you look at the price that is paid for that unit and what I would need to invest just to maintain that unit viable.
While there are lease transfers in other cities, experts say Quebec tenants have used them for years to try to keep rents low. Now some worry rents will just keep rising. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Well, here's a live shot of Harbour Centre. Weather-wise, still warm, but a few more showers before another dry stretch takes over. Your long-range forecast is on the way next.
Good morning.
Mi'kmaq elder Terry LeBlanc welcomes the group to Abegweit First Nation. They are here today to talk about sport and culture. The goal is to find ways to involve more Indigenous youth.
I think it's important to offer opportunity to Indigenous youth, and you don't know what you might be interested in if you've never had a chance to try.
Representatives are here from sports including baseball, lacrosse, ringette, and pickleball, and organizations like Sport PEI, Special Olympics, and UPEI. Lynn-Ann Hogan says she's hoping to see specific initiatives.
If we can introduce youth to come try sessions, very safe environment, no commitment, because sometimes too there's a big price tag that goes along with registering for a sport for a whole season. So if we can remove that, bring the sport to the youth, get them to have fun, if we can get them to have fun, then they're going to want to come back for more and to learn more about it.
Some sports like lacrosse are already actively recruiting more Indigenous youth.
A big part of what I do with the Canada Games team is going to be sharing the history of lacrosse with the girls and kind of like integrating that story, and I think that will hopefully make them better players and have more passion for the game.
Baseball PEI already has summer camps at Lennox Island and Scotchfort, but is also hoping to do more.
When you're trying to encourage people to feel welcome and safe in a space to try a sport, you really need to understand what it looks like through their perspective and through their eyes. So I'm really wanting to learn something about Indigenous competition, and we actually just learned about that and what it means to them and why competition is important to their culture and how to present it to them in a way that's meaningful for them.
Organizers from the Aboriginal Sports Circle plan to follow up with the sports organizations here today and have some initial sessions organized very soon. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Scotchfort.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Renowned filmmaker Freddie DeVos is working on an episode of the new BBC Planet Earth 3. In this episode, his team captures the behavior of the humpback whales just off the northern coast of Vancouver Island.
30 years ago, there were hardly any humpback whales off the coast of Vancouver at all because they'd been hunted out. But fortunately for all of us, there's the ban on the commercial hunting of whales, which came in 1986.
Right.
And since then, we've started to see the return of whales, and especially off the coast of Vancouver. Now there are over 100 whales that come back, and 20 years ago there were 3. So it's really an extraordinary change.
Darius Madavi is here with a look at the forecast. And Darius, those low snowpack levels are still causing concern.
Yes, and I don't want to make any promises I can't keep, but Tanya, we might be busy in the summer with the wildfire situation and the drought situation once again, because we are shaping up to have not the best start to the season. Now, this can change if we get some decent rainfall in the spring and into the summer, and if temperatures come back down to seasonal instead of being quite a bit above normal like they have been recently. But this is about as bad as it could be heading into that season, because you can see we're at a record low levels of snowpack. So this is only the automatic snow stations. This is about half the total. There's some half of them are manual as well. So this is only taking into account the automatic ones. But having almost 40 years of records and having this be the lowest year ever quite consistently is certainly concerning. And so unless we get some decent inputs of snow pretty soon, it's going to be a bad start to the drought season. Now, are we going to get those inputs of snow anytime soon? It depends where you are. In the interior, we're seeing some snow that is going to continue in the central and southern parts of the interior, except at the valley bottoms where we are continuing to see rain, so places like Kelowna. We're going to continue to see that into overnight tonight and maybe tomorrow morning as well, but that starts to ease off. Meanwhile, tomorrow across the southern parts of the south coast, we're going to see some pretty consistent showers. Those will continue, and then freezing levels come down into the end of this week, which means we might have a chance of some snow late in the showers tomorrow, so overnight Wednesday into Thursday. But then even as temperatures do come down, we also start to dry out. And then the next system comes down from the north instead of from the south, meaning that's going to break into parts of the interior, but have a hard time making it down to the south coast anytime before early next week. Now, you might also start to hear that we might get some snow early next week, and I can't make any promises there, and I wouldn't count on it just yet because there is a lot of uncertainty, but there is a chance that we get a cold snap as the polar jet stream dips back down. But again, I wouldn't make any promises. Now, temperatures for now are staying pretty high, especially in the central interior where they're actually coming up in terms of conditions. Tomorrow, we do have those flurries continuing in the southern interior and showers here on the coast, but beyond that, we're staying pretty calm here on the south coast. A couple more days of these scattered showers, and then we start to dry up into the weekend for what will be cloudy, but nothing too much to worry about.
We'll take it. Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
That is your late news for this Tuesday, February 20th. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download our free CBC News app, and you can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for being with us. Good night.